around the world, welcome once again to GP Melbourne for the semi-finals, I should say, here at day 2 of GP Melbourne. We have Sung-Wook Nam with Mono Black facing off against Ash Webster here in the semi-finals. These guys are both qualified for the Pro Tour, but now facing each other for GP glory here in Melbourne. My name's Riley Knight. It's my great pleasure to introduce once again Ray Walkinshaw in the booth with me, fondly known as Blister Guy, all the way down from Sydney. Ray, such a pleasure to have you with us once again.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, Riley. I've been enjoying myself thoroughly this week.
It's been a great weekend. We've seen all sorts of powerful spells being resolved on all sorts of tables, from the newcomers here in Melbourne all the way to the best people in Australia. It's been a great weekend of Magic.
It's been a magical weekend of Magic.
It has exactly been that. So here on the John Monster side of things, we're going to see a Sylvan Caryatid come down on turn 2. We saw in the quarters a very powerful starts enabled by these mana accelerants, and you've got to be happy to have that on turn 2.
Very key for the Monsters deck. They want to have a mana creature accelerating them out of the gates at the early game.
Having said that, I don't think there's a more powerful turn 2 play for a Mono Black deck than the Big Daddy himself. It is Pack Rat, of course. On the left-hand side of your screen, Pack Rat, the limited all-star, finding its way into the top tables in 2013 and now 2014. Obviously, Sung-Wook Nam very happy to deploy that Pack Rat early, as we see a Courser of Crufix revealing a Blood Crypt from the top of Ash Webster's library. That's going to regain the life that he lost, shocking himself with that Overgrown Tomb last turn, or at least half of it, with 1 point of damage taking him up to 19.
So that is definitely a good play with the Courser of Crufix, but what it was, most importantly, not a play that dealt with that Pack Rat.
Exactly right. I mean, Pack Rat is really able to take over that games. It can be held down for a little bit for the Courser of Crufix. Having said that, it does just turn every card in your hand, if you want it, into an ever-increasing Rat army.
It's a huge inevitability, and there are a lot of decks in this tournament that can deal with that. You get a bunch of Rats out, you can still deal with them at some point. This might be a little tough for Ash, unless he can overload a Mizzium Mortis late in the day.
Unfortunately for Ash Webster, he's not going to be able to do that. 0 Mizzium Mortis in his 75.
So when he's added the black to his deck to make it better, he's had to cut on some of those powerful spells that the red-green monster decks often run themselves.
That's exactly right. I mean, that overloaded Mizzium Mortis is not going to be good enough to take care of a Pack Rat at this point. It's a great shame for Ash Webster that he doesn't have an out to that. I mean, I'm looking at his list. He has a couple of Dreadbores and maybe a Domri Raid that's going to be able to fight a couple of them. But I mean, really, facing down a turn 2 Pack Rat with a deck like John Monsters with very few outs to it, you've got to feel good about your position if you're on the Mono Black side of things, Ray.
Yeah, kind of, except that Ash Webster can do this.
Okay, well, there you go. Almost immediately making me look like a buffoon with a Storm Breath Dragon coming across the side of and slamming Sung-Wook Nam for 4 points of damage.
So that's what Ash is going to do here. If he can't deal with this Pack Rat by removing them from play, he's just going to race them. He's going to drop big monsters and go for the throat.
It's time for the Rat Race. That's exactly right. It's time to get to fire on all cylinders and get stuck in with. But there is a third and fourth Pack Rat, 3 copies and 1 token. Those are 4 4s slamming in across to Ash Webster. 3 Pack Rats. I tell you what, you'd love to have a detention sphere right now.
You would. I was not anticipating that play. Who knew that you could play more Pack Rats from your hand?
There you go. Not often the way that you see it. I mean, in this case, Sung-Wook Nam's got to be ecstatic to be able to put 2 into play rather than just 1 by discarding a card.
Absolutely. So Ash's plan of racing these Pack Rats is going to look very, very difficult.
Absolutely right. I mean, look, Sung-Wook Nam, if he's seen the deck list, perhaps he knows there's no Mizzium Mortis, so he's not afraid of an untap into an overloaded Mizzium Mortis, which basically would be the only out I could see here. Ash Webster not having access to the powerful sorcery that's going to be able to wipe his opponent's board. He's just left with a Storm Breath Dragon that at this point is only as big as one of the Rats.
That's right. Being able to overload a Mizzium Mortis here would be just fantastic, and it looks like it's favoring Sung-Wook Nam. But as you say, if they saw each other's deck lists, that's the play you make, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? I'm not walking into a Mizzium Mortis. I can do this.
I know I'm not going to do this. Not featuring in the 75, so I'm free to deploy these creatures and get stuck in as early as I can. On turn 4, already we have 16 power of Rats on the battlefield. And I tell you what, facing down, I mean, normally a Storm Breath Dragon and a Courser of Crufix at this early point of the game, you've got to be happy with that generally.
Yeah, I would be pretty pleased with a turn 4 Storm Breath Dragon and getting into the red zone, but, you know, we do powerful things in Magic. Sometimes that's not enough.
That's right. Facing down 4 Pack Rats on turn 4. I mean, really not where you're looking to be.
No. Yep. And look at that. There's a Mutavault hiding in those lands.
No, additionally, Mutavault being able to pump all of those rats to 5/5, of course. Pack rats to power and toughness equal to the number of rats you control, and Mutavault is, of course, a rat.
So now, give me a moment here. I'm just going to do some maths. We've got 4 pack rats and a Mutavault, so that's 5 rats. 5 times 4 is 20. Now, you start on 20 life in Magic. That's not looking good for Ash.
It's not looking good for Ash. He does have some blocks, but I mean those pack rats are going to slam in as 5/5, so none of his blocks are looking particularly good at this point.
No, I think, and that's probably what Ash is thinking. But let's see how he goes. We've seen Ash pull out a position where we thought he was going to lose before.
Exactly right, Peps. We are counting our chickens. I mean, my goodness me, during the quarterfinals, we saw an amazing turnaround. Ash Webster coming back from 6 life when his opponent's on 49 and taking it home for Team Rock and Roll, getting into the semifinals.
It was a crazy game to watch, but right now I'm counting these chickens, and these chickens look a lot like rats.
Okay, all right. So we are counting our rats before they've hatched, I guess, and we do have a Satyr entering the battlefield. It does have haste. I don't imagine it's going to be rumbling in.
No, it's probably going to hold back.
That's right. It looks like Ash Webster's just pausing on that Xenagos activation. He can generate 3 mana with it, but no, choosing instead to summon a Satyr. So a stabilization that isn't really... Oh, and a Stormbreath Dragon coming in. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, look, I think if you want to win this game and your name is Ash Webster, you need to make sure you're also getting damage up on the board.
That's right. And I mean, look, at this point, really, it is a game, it is a race, and sitting back and hoping to block ineffectively isn't going to win you the game. You've got to play to your outs. You've got to be aggressive and be on the front foot. And even if it's not going to get you there, you play in a way, you play with a mentality and a belief that the game is not beyond your reach. And
Absolutely.
Ash Webster has demonstrated his capacity to do that, overcoming his fellow Western Australian in the quarterfinals.
I think Sung-Wook Nam might be about to try and trick Ash. See, he's attacked with 4 rats, currently 4/4, right?
Yeah.
Ash has got 3 blockers. Ash needs to block 3 of those rats, or Sung-Wook Nam could do, as we said, turn the Mutavault into a rat and hit him for 10. So I guess Sung-Wook Nam is right now trying to see if Ash has seen that play. And yep, three blockers declared, so he did see it. You don't get to the top 4 of a GP without being good enough to see that play.
No, that's right. So there we go, just making those blocks nice and clear for everyone. We're seeing all the 4/4s being the 4/4 rats being blocked. Mutavault obviously able to activate itself and make them a 5/5. At this point, not highly necessary.
Not at all necessary, but it certainly meant that it made him make those blocks. Yeah, this is not looking great for Ash at all, although at least he saw that play.
At least he saw that. There you go. So all of those creatures are dying. Sung-Wook Nam choosing not to activate the Mutavault. Happy to get in for 4, and there's a Desecration Demon just to put an extra few nails in the coffin that Ash Webster's found himself in for game number 1.
That's a sufficient amount of salt in that wound, yeah.
Unfortunately for Ash Webster, it looks like this game may be well and truly over. Having said that, look, I don't want to do the same thing and count him out just yet.
I'm going to count him out for game 1.
Okay.
I'm going on the line with
Ray
that one,
Walkinshaw nailing his colours to the mast once again. Here we go. We're going to see what happens, but it's not looking good for the Western Australian. So it is great, of course, to have a range of international players here at GP Melbourne. Here we do have a lot of Asian, very very powerful players coming in from the Asia Pacific region. Sung-Wook Nam, one of them, as the players do indeed pack up. Sung-Wook Nam coming out of Korea, defeating Ash Webster in game number 1. The Western Australian going down to the might of the turn 2 pack rat, followed up by the turn 4 double pack rat play.
Yeah, that was a lot of rats. That was a veritable rat bag of rats.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely right.
And Ash went down. Yeah, we've seen Ash capable of coming back from some very impressive starts from his opponent. Didn't happen this game. That's not to say he can't pull it out in games 2 and 3 in this match.
What are your thoughts moving to the sideboards here? We've had a look at Ash Webster's sideboard, but we're now Sung-Wook's through the course of the match. Ray, I'll get you to have a look at the sideboards and give us your thoughts moving into game 2.
Well, Ash has got access to a lot of spot removal. He's got things like Abrupt Decay and Golgari Charm, which wouldn't surprise me if they were there just to deal with things like turn 2 pack rats.
Obviously, Golgari Charm, a highly versatile card. We've sung its praises many times in the past. It is one of those answers to a turn 2 pack rat. In addition to that, 3 ultimate price coming in from the board. You might think against the pack rat plan.
Yeah, I think those who are ultimate price coming. Oh, ultimate price. Yeah, that's probably a good idea too. I mean, if he's really scared of those pack rats, that's a good idea. How many pack rats have we got in Sung-Wook's deck?
Obviously, the full 4 being played. So we've got Golgari Charm, Abrupt Decay, and Ultimate Price there. 6 cards that are able to answer a turn 2 pack rat. You may think. I mean, look. Ash Webster may not fall into the trap of sideboarding against the cards that he just lost to. Having said that, versatile and powerful answers. Abrupt Decay also obviously able to take care of a Night Veil Spectre.
Yep.
Is it too narrow?
Well, I don't know that you're going to see those Night Vale Spectres staying in. They seem like prime candidates to come out, looking at what Sung-Wook Nam's going to sideboard in. He's got, at his availability, he's got like Doom Blades. They're going to be great for the big monsters. He's got Lifebane Zombies. They could be pretty good.
We did see Lifebane Zombie brought in against Ash Webster when playing against Black-White mid-range. So perhaps these cards are going to do some work once again. I mean, I'm not sure how much Sung-Wook knows about the Black Splash of Ash Webster's deck. Doomblade, a little bit marginal against something like a Reaper of the Wilds. Having said that, sometimes just get a Dragon off the table, get rid of that Courser of Krufix.
Absolutely. The Dragon is one of the key creatures in Ash's deck. It sounds terrible to say, but because it can fly. Sung-Wook Nam's deck, he's got Desecration Demon in the air.
Yeah.
That's not a reliable blocker. Night Vale Spectre, probably not staying in for this.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it will, but even that's not going to stand up well to a Stormbreath Dragon.
No,
that dragon is probably the key creature from Ash's deck as far as fighting against Sung-Wook Nam.
You're right in saying that. I think it's going to be interesting to see the way that these players choose to sideboard. Not the most diverse of answers that they've got here. I think just upgrading removal spells if possible, maybe diversifying the answers that they've got to the opposing threats. But look, Ash Webster, as he demonstrated, I should say, in the quarterfinals, really able to put on a show, put up a big fight, and I'd be interested to know what his mind space is right now. What's going on in his brain zone?
Oh, I think he's probably pretty excited and probably a little nervous now that he's down a game. I mean, this is his first time playing in a Grand Prix. He's probably thrilled to be as far as he is, but you should never be content with second place.
No, absolutely right. I mean, even though he's heading off to the Pro Tour, he's still, the tournament isn't over, and I'm sure he's still hoping to put up a big result as Ash Webster shuffles up. The two opponents there offering, or well, at least Sung-Wook Nam presenting. Look, I really like the deck that Ash Webster's playing. It's a great story, him coming from Perth, getting stuck in with some of his mates, and having a go here at GP Melbourne. He's made it all the way to the top 4, and we love an underdog story in this country.
To use a phrase that we often see on Australian team, he really is the great Aussie battler.
He is an Aussie battler. That's exactly right, and it's so great to see him here, of course. And as I was saying, great to see the Asian professionals coming out as well. We've got Sung-Wook Nam. We've got a range of people coming from the Asia Pacific region.
We had Hao Shan Huang as well. Good to see him back.
Absolutely right, chasing the glory here at PC Melbourne. At GP Melbourne. Australia, we are all the way on the other side of the world for most people in the Western world, all the way on the other side of the world for the Europeans and the North Americans in this world. But we are part of the Asia Pacific community, and it's great to have players making the trip to Melbourne and coming and playing here in Australia.
Very much so. We even had Chapman Sim coming in from Singapore to help us with the text coverage.
That's right, along with Noel Neo here joining us from Singapore. It's really good to feel part of a wider community here in the Asia Pacific region, and of course, I mean, bringing Australia to the world really with this inaugural video coverage. It's been a fantastic experience so far, and of course with these finals shaping up the way that they are, it looks like we're really going to bring a wonderful weekend of Magic to the entire world.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, Melbourne being a very control-centric part of the Magic metagame. Looks like we have an Esper mirror on the other table, so we're going to see an Esper deck in the finals.
Yeah, one way or the other.
Either a mono black deck or a Jund Monsters deck facing it down.
With the mono black deck, of course, obviously 1-0 up against the Jund Monsters deck as we move into game 2. Ash Webster mulliganing to 6, not the start you want.
He wasted no time throwing away that hand. Didn't get a chance to see it. Did it have not enough land? Did it have too much land? We won't know, but we've seen players win from worse 6-card hands.
I always like seeing a player mulligan very quickly.
Absolutely. It shows decisiveness, a willingness to just go, you know what, this isn't going to win me the game. I'm going to make the plays that matter. And we've seen Ash do that.
Yeah.
We saw Ash in his quarterfinal match just claw it back.
Yeah.
He's
not a quitter.
No,
he's not a quitter, and he sees 7 that's in his hand, and he said, you know what, that's not good enough. That isn't good enough for me. I can do better than that, and I'm going to take 6. And that's the sort of play that you need to make. I mean, maybe it was really clear, maybe it was a 0 lander, but the fact remains, if you're able to be decisive and you're able to say, no, this is how I want the game to run, you're going to do a lot better for yourself.
He's a young man with standards, and that seems appropriate for a standard Grand Prix.
Exactly right. That's absolutely true. So here we go. Sung-Wook Nam shuffling up Ash Webster's deck. It looks like Sung-Wook Nam is happy with his 7, so he's going to stick to 7 cards with his mono black deck, and we're going to see Ash Webster go down to 6. So moving on now, as Ash Webster deals himself out 6 cards, he's going to have a look at them. What has he got? I can see at least 1 land there, 2 lands, 3 lands with a Mutavault and a couple of duels, as well as a few cards there, a Domri Raid at least. So it looks like this opening has a little bit of game to it.
Picking up those cards one at a time, giving them the attention they deserve.
Okay, hitting the tank with this decision here, and it looks like it's all good. And we're off to the races here with Game 2 here at the semi-finals of Grand Prix Melbourne. A Temple of Abandon coming in, scrying 1, and here we are now with a Swamp opening. No Thoughtseize, no opening play from Sung-Wook Nam, and now on turn 2, again not making a play on turn 2.
So that's what Ash wants to do. He wants to accelerate his mana with either the Elvish Mystic or the Sylvan Caryatid, and he hasn't done that.
He hasn't done that, and now Ray facing down another turn 2 pack rat. You can't be feeling good about that.
No, well, it does depend what Ash has in his hand, though. Let's see what he's going to do.
We have a Stomping Ground coming, a Blood Crypt coming in untapped. That's going to take 2 life off him, and we're going to see a Dreadbore. Don't worry about that. Ash not mucking around. Get that pack rat out of here. I'm not going to let it happen to me once again.
Thou shalt not suffer a rat to live.
That's right. There we go. So what have we got here? We've got a Lifebane Zombie coming down. He's got a very easy choice to make here. 1 card able to get. He's able to exile there with.
I'll take that 1 card. I'm allowed to take. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, a very easy decision. No thinking about it there. A Domri Raid, addition to a Stomping Ground, and a Garruk Caller of Beasts. We saw Garruk win Ash a game that looked to be beyond his reach in the quarters. Maybe if he can get to 6, it might put in some work once again. Having said that, Domri Raid and Garruk Caller of Beasts are going to have a lot of pressure put on them by this 3-1 Intimidate.
That's right. Well, and interestingly enough, we mentioned this earlier. This 3-1 Intimidate would be quite impressive, this Lifebane Zombie. But Ash is playing Reaper of the Wild. It's a black creature. That can block it happily.
Absolutely. If he's able to get one out, that's going to do some work against his Lifebane Zombie. As we see Domri Raid draw Ash into an Elvish Mystic.
Yeah, that's not quite a Reaper of the Wilds.
It is not. That's right. So Thoughtseize coming down. We know the contents of his hand. We do see a Forest, a Garruk, and an Elvish Mystic. And Thoughtseize saying, see you later, pack your bags and move out of town for Garruk Caller of Beasts. He's
no surprises
all the way to the graveyard. Now, Sung-Wook Nam, the coast is clear in terms of Garruk. Only 1 in the 75. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, if he was watching that quarterfinals match of Ash, he knew that Garruk was pretty much responsible for that.
Absolutely. Big Garruk bringing big game to the quarterfinals here at GP Melbourne. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the semis. That looks like a Mutavault attack to me.
Yeah, it looks like Ash dropped his Elvish Mystic on the table and attacked back with a Mutavault. Not a powerful turn.
Not a powerful turn. Not exactly where you want to be. Speaking of powerful turns, Desecration Demon, a card with a high power level, it has to be said.
Yeah, this game's looking pretty good for Sung-Wook Nam. He's developing exactly as he would like to, while Ash Webster's mulligan may have put him in a position that he's just not doing much of interest. It looked like he scried a Reaper of the Wilds to the bottom.
Is that right? A card going to the bottom of his library. And a Desecration Demon trigger being ignored. Ash Webster taking 9 here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you either lose the elf and take 7 next turn.
And there we go, a Grey Merchant. That's going to do it for Ash Webster. Sung-Wook Nam taking it out in straight sets. 2-0 over Ash Webster. Gaza, the big dog, getting it done.
That's right.
For Sung-Wook Nam. Gaza, the Grey Merchant of Asphodel. There it is, with an enormous drain there after that huge swing of 9 points from the Desecration Demon and the Lifebane Zombie.
That's exactly how Sung-Wook Nam's deck's got to play out. You know, remove some stuff, play some quite powerful threats, finish it up with a Grey Merchant. Thank you, good night.
That's exactly right. A Lava Axe, more or less, straight upstairs, and we'll see you later for the guys on the table here for the semi-finals. So we do have a match ready to go on our second table, so we're going to move straight over there. It is the big dog himself, Patty Robertson, facing off against his opponent, also on Esper Control. We have Yifan Wei, who we saw in the last round. So Patty Robertson, of course, getting stuck in with Yifan Wei here, and it looks like they are on the... so Yifan Wei has mulligan by the look of things. It looks like he's only got 5 cards in his hand to Patty Robertson's full 7 by the look of things. They're going to get underway. Here we go with what looks to be game 1 of the Esper Mirror here. So they've been polite enough to wait around so we can get the full match for you underway. So Patty Robertson leading with a Temple of Deceit to Yifan Wei's island. He's put a card on the bottom.
So it's interesting here that Yifan Wei has mulligan to 5 on the play. Now, in many matches, that's pretty disastrous. But it's not like Patty Robertson's going to put a great deal of pressure on him early, so he may have the opportunity to recover from a double mulligan like that. But he looks like he may have missed a land drop. That could be disastrous.
That could be disastrous indeed for Yifan Wei. I mean, look, in a blue-white control player, blue-white base control player, more or less happy to keep almost like a 5-land hand. And unfortunately, Not going to get it done here because he's stuck on 2 lands. Patty Robertson developing his board nicely, considering his options as he draws a card. And down comes what I imagine will be a Jace Architect of Thought, and that is going to get syncopated. So Yifan Wei and able to put at least a little bit of play a little bit of interaction here with Patty Robertson. As we see a Quicken come down, he's going to hope to hit a land, and he doesn't. So there you go. An awful start for Yifan Wei. Very unfortunate, at the mercy of his deck here. Stuck on 2 islands, not even access to any of his other colors. As we see Patty Robertson play a land and pass the turn. That looks like a scry land.
Yeah, basically, in a control mirror like this, both players just want to keep playing out lands so that they can play their powerful spells late. Traditionally, it's going to be the person who has the most lands has the ability to play the most threats or answers in one turn. Yifan Wei is not looking good in that.
No, that's right. I mean, look, really already stifled on mana. He's just drawn another land, but he is already 2 lands behind, in addition to being behind on cards.
Yeah. When you mulligan to 5 and those 2 cards down, you are 2 lands you need. That's not pretty.
Patty Robertson taking 2 life. Robertson really happy to use his life as a resource. A fairy player of old, he knows how to switch gears at a very one of the we've talked about a little bit at the crucial skill that an Esper or a blue-white based control player needs to have, and that is knowing when to switch, knowing the critical points in a match where you have to switch gears and go from a defensive controlling posture to one that's going to take over a game. Patty Robertson, I can tell from personal experience, a master at knowing that, a fairies player of old, and he's going to know that when to hold them and when to start deploying his threats.
It looks like he played that land untapped so he could get the most out of his Sphinx's Revelation, which was taken out by a dissolve from Yifan Wei. But yeah, he can afford to play that land untapped. What's Yifan Wei going to do? Attack him with something?
No, that's just such a faux pas here in the Esper Control mirror, of course.
It's just not done, sir.
It's just not done. It's just not done, and I'm glad to see that both players respecting that as we are now. But this looks like it's going to be an Aetherling. There you go, packing him up straight away. No thank you, says Yifan Wei. I cannot beat that. So Patty Robertson going 1-0 up off the back of the Aetherling. We were talking about attacking with creatures, not the gentlemanly thing to do. It's great to see that Robertson and Wei coming to the understanding, you know what, you're not even going to have to swing in with that Aetherling. I'll pack him up.
That's right. It's not done, sir. Not done.
It's just not the done thing, and it's great to see these Esper Control players really respecting the timbre of these mirrors. So a pretty clear sideboard plan for both of these players here, Ray. As we turn up our sights to the 15 cards that these players have in reserve, what are you liking out of the sideboards?
They each have a negate. I'm happy to bring that in. There's gainsays as well. Happy to bring those in. Looks like we got some Blood Barons of Vizkopa. It's kind of difficult to interact with those outside of Supreme Verdict.
Absolutely right.
A Detention Sphere can't remove it. Like creature tokens from Elspeth can't get in the way of them.
No, that's right. I mean, really, Blood Baron of Vizkopa having protection against most of the opposing person's deck. And if we look at the sideboards here, Patty Robertson with access to 3 of them, you can imagine all of them are going to be a slam dunk include into the 60 in game number 2. Yifan Wei only 2.
Yeah, and that might be the difference. I mean, Yifan Wei is already down a game. He can't afford to give up any edges, but we're going to see. It is going to come to a long game, I suspect, unless one of the mulligans to 5 and misses his land drops. So, there are plenty of other things here that are going to determine what happens in this match, and it's going to be, I guess, a jockeying of positions right into the late game.
That sounds absolutely right. I mean, yeah, Patty Robertson was kind enough to come and do a deck tech with me last night. He talked about his sideboarding plan against blue-white black control. He's got gainsays, he's got negates, he's got thought seizers, he's even got an Archangel of Thune. I'm not sure if he's going to bring that in, but it might be an option in terms of just diversifying threats and getting into the red zone and locking up this game too.
I imagine he's probably not going to bring it in unless he goes to time in the Swiss rounds. We saw that happen this weekend. Someone bringing that in and attacking the Swiss mirror, the Esper mirror with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right about the Thought Seizers. The Gates and Gainsay is excellent to help those battles over key spells.
Yeah.
It's a pretty solid plan. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Yifan Wei, of course, playing a card that I'm a massive fan of in Quicken.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of work. It smooths out draws occasionally. It almost acts as part of the land. And here we go. So we can see Patty Robertson not leaving any doubt in our minds as to what he was sideboarding out there. We did see a D-Sphere come out along with those Doomblades. That's not a surprise. And there we go. 3 Blood Barons in, 2 Gainsays, and a Gate, and a couple of other cards as well coming in his 60-card Game 2 deck. What do you like for Yifan Wei in terms of his options? He does have a Glare of Heresy. He does have access to 2 Glare of Heresy.
Yeah, he also has a Pithing Needle, which ordinarily is excellent at dealing with opposing Planeswalkers, unless opposing Planeswalkers have the same name as your Planeswalkers.
That's right. I mean, people are always happy to name Aetherling with their Pithing Needles and turn it into a very, very inefficiently costed 4/5. But obviously, if it's hitting your Aetherling as well, I mean, maybe you're not wanting to do that. I'm not sure about the role that Pithing Needle will play in the mirror.
Yeah.
In any case, we do have the players shuffling up and getting ready for game number 2. Patty Robertson up 1 game. But, I mean, look, a very skill-intensive matchup. I back both of these players to the hilt to play absolutely correctly. You don't get to the top 4 of a GP without knowing your eggs.
No, sir. These guys must know their matchup inside and out.
Absolutely right. I mean, I can guarantee Patty has done an enormous amount of preparation. We've had people around at our house day and night testing and preparing for this event, which has obviously been great for everyone involved. And it's so good to see a local guy putting up a good result here at GP Melbourne. He's through to the Pro Tour. He's through to the semifinals. We're going to see how far he can go. But of course, Yifan Wei, not here to make friends. He is here. He's not here to muck around. Also from Australia here, Yifan Wei, and he's going to do what he can to get a good result here at GP Melbourne.
Yeah, it's going to be a big fight. It's going to be interesting to see which of these players can get the position, get the spells resolving that they need to take this match to its conclusion.
So the players shuffling up, as we said, making sure that all the proper protocols are overseen before they move in to a round. We're up to game number 2 here, of course, with Patty Robertson 1 game up in an Esper Control mirror. The game, I mean, obviously off the back of a mulligan to 5 and missed land drops, resolved pretty quickly. But I mean, we could be in for the long haul here, Ray, with this Esper Control mirror.
Right. Usually the game is not going to end the way game 1 did. And it seemed like both players knew the writing was on the wall, and they played accordingly. They played quickly, they played cleanly, and they're like, yep, this is done. We're good. Let's go to the second.
Absolutely right. I mean, that snap concession to the Aetherling really just solidifying the fact that Yifan Wei was in a really bad spot there.
That's right. I mean, most people have a hard time interacting with the Aetherling as it is.
Yeah.
Someone who is as behind as Yifan Wei was, no chance.
So we've got Yifan Wei opening up the game with a Temple of Silence. He's going to scry, and Patty Robertson's going to mirror that with a Temple of Deceit. So a blue-black temple coming in on his side. He ships a card to the bottom as Yifan Wei draws for his second turn, and a land coming into play now, a Hallowed Fountain tapped. So both players not making huge amounts of play in the first couple of turns of the game. Generally, that's how this mirror turn pans out.
Absolutely does. Well, we affectionately refer to that as land go, land go.
That's exactly right. I'm sure these players are more than happy to be making these exchanges at this point.
Yeah, I think Yifan Wei is just happy to be making the land drops that he was not making in game 1.
That's right, as we see another card shift to the bottom by Yifan Wei.
I think often in this case, in the early game, you'll be scrying anything to the bottom that's not a land and keeping anything that is.
More or less. I mean, that seems to be a solid way to deal with things. I mean, you're going to draw through your threats eventually, and at this point, you want counter magic. We've got a Jace. That's going to... Patty does have a Syncopate in his hand, a beautiful old-bordered Syncopate there. It might eat up that Jace Architect of Thought.
It's an interesting position to put a Jace out into. In game 1, it's only going to be a couple of Syncopates that not even all players are playing that can get it. In game 2, you've got to respect that there are negates, there are gainsays. Yeah, that Jace was probably not going to stick around.
But Yifan Wei fearlessly running it out, and we know Patty has access to a Dissolve. I think 2 Dissolves in his hand, as you can see him shuffling them around like a madman. He does tend to do that.
And we can see why Yifan Wei ran out that Jace. He has another one in backup.
A backup Jace, of course. That might eat another counterspell, and there it is, the Dissolve, enabling Patty to have a look at the top of his library. Both these players really getting a lot of value out of these the scry mechanics so far in this match.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone has been doing that this weekend. Scrying is just such a great ability for smoothing your draws and giving you control over how the game goes.
It's interesting. I remember having a conversation with a lot of people when Dissolve was spoiled, and people underwhelmed by the fact that we were only scrying 1. I mean, scrying 1 now is just it does really feel like you're doing something powerful. And when you're scrying 2 off a Magma Jet, it almost feels like you're cheating.
Yeah, scry 2 is incredible, and that's what we used to do when we were scrying. And you were right. When we saw those scry 1 on everything, it's like, that seems like not enough. Apparently, it's great.
It really has become a staple of the format here, as we see a beautiful Beta Plains hitting the battlefield on Patty's side of the field. Patty, a lover of his Beta cards, he does chase them down at every availability here. So he's got 6 mana. I don't think we're going to see too much run into counter magic here, as Patty considers a Jace. So there we go, a Jace coming into the battlefield on his side of the of play. Is that going to resolve? Yifan Wei.
It's interesting to see. Yifan Wei was willing to play out his Jaces with no backup, but it looks like Patty's waiting until he can respond to whatever Yifan Wei tries to answer the Jace with.
He does have a Gainsay in his hand. Yifan Wei with access to a Gainsay. Patty Robertson moving his cards around at the speed of light. We're not able to tell exactly what's in his hand. I can see a Sphinx's Revelation and at least one other counterspell as Jace hits the battlefield. He is resolved.
He does.
Up or down?
I think you go down at this point. I don't see a Mutavault on Yifan Wei's side of the table, so Jace is pretty safe. There he goes.
All right, so a split here, a mini fact or fiction. Thoughtseize, Dissolve, Island. What do you like?
That Thoughtseize is probably better than the Dissolve here at this point because it doesn't cost a lot to play. So if it's going to do the same thing, it's going to answer one of Yifan Wei's threats, it does it proactively rather than reactively and uses less mana. That said, the Thoughtseize only takes something out of the hand, and Dissolve can wait for whatever turns up off the top of the library. So It looks like Patty's taking the Dissolve, and I won't disagree with that.
Look, I think Patty's happy to just take 2 cards at this point. Patty, a real sucker for getting value out of that sort of thing. So happy enough to take 2 cards. We're going to see now a Sinker's Revelation for 3.
Patty likes 2 cards. Yifan Wei wants 3.
Wants 3, that's right. But we do. I can see. I think a Gainsay in his hand, but Patty Robertson allowing that to resolve. Yifan Wei is going to draw 3 cards and go up to 23 life here. So 1, 2, and 3 cards coming off the top. He's going to untap and draw another card. So Yifan Wei in a pretty good position after that. After that Sphinx's Revelation for 3. Having said that, a Jace Architect of Thought going to keep Patty in the business.
That's right. I think at this point, Patty would be tempted perhaps to counter that Sphinx's Revelation, but there are going to be later Sphinx Revelations which are a lot bigger. There could also be an Etheling. If he were to tap down to counter that Sphinx's Revelation, he would not be a happy man if Yifan Wei untapped and played a Etheling.
That's right, of course.
I think that's what Patty might be worried about there.
The threat of that Aetheling, really a game-breaking card in the Esper Mirror. And after sideboard, Yifan Wei still only having access to one of them. Both players actually only playing one in the 75.
That's right.
So a Blood Baron of Viscopa, that cannot be gainsayed, of course. Patty hoping that he's going to be able to gainsay something, but that Blood Baron might be doing some work here for Yifan Wei now that it's hit the battlefield. You'd think that Patty will have to deal with that.
He will, and we saw him side out several of his Supreme Verdicts, so it's going to be interesting to see what he actually does to deal with it. He's looking for an answer with his Jace.
There you go. I think he's happy enough to cash it in there as we see a Detention Sphere joined by a Thoughtseize and a Temple of Silence. I'll have the Thoughtseize, says Patty. So not finding the Supreme Verdict that he needs. I would imagine that he's kept at least one in. Ray, do you agree with that?
It did look like he had kept one in when he was flashing what he sideboarded out, but one found in the rest of those 60 cards. It might be an uphill battle for Patty here.
Yeah, that's right. So a Thoughtseize coming down and showing a hand that, oh my goodness, there you go. An Aetheling indeed in his hand there, Yifan Wei's hand. So Patty Robertson taking the correct line, not countering the Sphinx's Revelation because I would imagine that would be a windmill slam, the Aetheling into play.
Yeah, he had the land to be able to play that and protect it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you're right about that, Ray. So there, so a Gainsay, a Dissolve, a Watery Grave, an Aetheling, and a Detention Sphere for Yifan Wei. A pretty stacked hand, you'd have to say.
Yeah, I think Patty's probably looking at this and going, this is rough. But we can't see what's in Patty's hand. Maybe he also has some gas. But most importantly, he's going to need to deal with that Blood Baron. And I don't see an answer in the horizon.
Well, look, if Patty actually can draw and play a Blood Baron of his own, I mean, if he has one in his hand, he's in a reasonable spot. Having said that, he can't afford to tap out at any point, knowing that the Aetheling's in the Yifan Wei's hand. Of course, unless he chooses to Thoughtseize it away.
My personal preference would be to take that Aetheling out right then.
I would not be surprised if Patty doesn't do that.
Yeah, me neither. He's giving it some thought, though.
He really is giving it some thought. Knowing Patty as I do, I would be surprised. I would not be surprised to see him taking an unorthodox line of play. A lot of players would just snap, choose the Aetheling. Patty plays on a very, very different level to a lot of people, and he might be thinking about a completely different line.
That's what's got him to the top 4 on his GP, so who are we to question that?
So Patty deep in the tank about these Thoughtseize. What's for certain is he's losing 2 life, and he's going down to 18 for that Thoughtseize.
That is definitely for certain. Yeah, there are no takebacks, I'm afraid.
No, unfortunately not. So the 2 counter spells, the Detention Sphere and the Aetheling, the only targets he can take there, that Watery Grave is safe, of course, from the Thoughtseize. So Patty Robertson, deep in the tank, thinking about what he's going to take here.
I think if he were even allowed to take that Watery Grave, it would still be safe from the
I don't think he's too worried about it. You're absolutely right, Ray.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting what he takes. It would be nice to get a look at Patty's hand.
I can see a gold card in it. I think he's definitely got at least one island, and I saw in it a gold card that looked to be Blood Baron of Viscopa.
Yeah, see, now that's going to help him take away some of the impact of the opposing Blood Baron, because they can just attack back and forward at each other, keeping the life totals.
And there goes the Dissolve. There you go. So the Aetheling, he's happy enough to leave that in his hand. I'm sure that Patty feels like that he doesn't want to use the Thoughtseize as a crutch here. He doesn't want to take the easy way out and do that. He's looking to play an interactive game. He's looking to play a game that really tests the skill of these 2 players. And for that reason, he's gone for the Dissolve.
Yeah, I think it's quite possible he's worried that the Dissolve will stop him playing his own Blood Baron.
That's right. I think that's probably what's on his mind, because next turn, of course, he'll have access to 7 mana. He'll be able to play a Blood Baron with a Gainsay backup. So that'll take care of any Aetheling on the side of Yifan Wei. Certainly a lot easier to play around the Aetheling when you know it's there. As the Blood Baron comes across for 4, that's going to be an 8-point life swing in favor of Yifan Wei. He's going to go up to 27 by the look of things, and Patty Robertson down to 4 as the life-linking Blood Baron gets stuck in. As I say, a lot easier to play around an Aetheling coming down if you know it's there.
It is, but if your answer is to counter it, you've got to leave mana up all the time.
Yeah.
Seems tough. Like right now, Yifan Wei is trying to bait that Gainsay out of Patty's hand with a Jace.
He might be happy enough here to dissolve it. I could see that happening because then he still has access to Gainsay. Having said that, maybe he doesn't want to constrict his mana. Maybe he wants to cast a 2-mana counterspell. But no, we are seeing a dissolve. There we go.
I think dissolve helps him dig for more answers.
That's absolutely right, and it also does guarantee that he's going to be able to play Blood Baron and keep up a counterspell in the next game, in the next turn, I should say.
That's right. That's right.
So Yifan Wei thinking about that dissolve, obviously some counter magic of his own. He did have a Gainsay, and we're going to see that Gainsay cast. I don't think Patty's going to be too disappointed with that. That seems like a reasonable trade there.
Yeah, I don't think you're unhappy to see your opponent tapping down on their own turn.
And there goes the Gainsay as well, targeting that Gainsay. So
I think that's the window that Patty was wanting. He's tapped his opponent out on his own turn, so he's going to be safe to try and resolve his answer, or at least something to go around that Blood Baron.
There you go. So
if Patty can find an Aetheling, wouldn't this be a great time to play it?
That would be absolutely right. I mean, if that comes down, then Patty's going to be in good shape. So the Gainsay targeting the Gainsay, meaning that the dissolve still resolves and targets the Jace, meaning that Patty did get the scry.
That's right.
Absolutely making sure his targeting was correct there. So in Patty's hand, a Sphinx's Revelation, what looks to be a Blood Baron, and an Island.
Wow. So Patty gets Yifan tapped down for the turn, does nothing with it.
Absolutely. So an interesting line there taken from Patty. He's going to take another 4 damage, go down to 10 here. Yifan Wei up to 31, which means, I'm not sure if it's at 10 or below 10, but it means that the Blood Baron is actually assumed his final form.
Yeah, okay, if he's down to 10, that Blood Baron it's scary. +6/+6 and flying now. That means if it can connect, it connects.
Is it 10 or is it below 10?
That's a good question. Let's look that up.
We're just going to check that real quick because that Blood Baron might be a 10-10 flying beta here. We're just going to make sure
it is.
Having said that, Patty does have the Sphinx's Revelation in his hand. If he's able to resolve that,
10 or less life. And as long as you are above 30. And Yifan Wei is definitely above 30.
Ticking both of those boxes at the moment, of course. Patty Robertson able to gain some life off his Sphinx's Revelation should he choose to fire that off.
That would probably be a useful play for him right now.
I think so. Bringing that Blood Baron back to a reasonable standard of 4/4. The hidden mode on Blood Baron, not often engaged.
No, not often engaged, but it's definitely there on the card.
Yeah, it's often quoted as being the flavor text, but sometimes relevant. I mean, we've seen...
It's a flavorsome ability.
It is indeed.
It lets you feel what the card is like. It's what it's about.
That's right.
I think Patty might soon be feeling what that card is about, and not a way he'll be happy about.
No, you'd think not. With Yifan Wei having a look what's in his hand, so we know there's a Detention Sphere. We know that there's an Aetheling, and we're not sure what the other card is at the moment in Yifan Wei's hand. Patty Robertson, he's put his cards down. You can still see his hands moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Someone who likes to keep himself very busy as down comes the Aetheling. So, calling Patty's bluff here. Does Patty have a counterspell for it? He does. A Dissolve coming down, taking care of that Aetheling. So, see you later. Send him to the bin as Patty sends a card to the bottom. Patty, obviously, I think, pretty happy enough to scry there.
Yeah, Yifan Wei was clearly just trying to see if Patty had a way out of this. Was just trying to seal the game. Patty's obviously answered that, but still needs to answer this Blood Baron.
Do you think we're going to see a Sphinx's Revelation here to take him back up to 16 life?
Well, during his turn?
During his turn to... Because he knows the way is clear for the Aetheling.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't want to... if Yifan Wei only has one card in hand, then Patty knows that that's a Detention Sphere.
Right. So, I mean, he's going to need to do it. If not now, then during Yifan Wei's upkeep.
There it is.
So he's doing it now.
It's
a big one.
Unsurprising, yes. Patty Robertson resolving a Sphinx's Revelation for 6. So that's going to take him up to 16. That's going to shrink the Blood Baron back to a reasonable proportion.
A more manageable size.
That's right. A Jace, a Detention Sphere, and a few other cards. One Island and still a Blood Baron in Patty's hand as he discards the Plains. Back over to Yifan Wei now, who untaps and draws for the turn, and he's drawn a card we didn't quite manage to see. In comes the Blood Baron. That's another 4 damage. Yifan Wei up to 35.
Yeah, so while Yifan Wei did not win this turn, he's still in a pretty reasonable position. Patty has a fistful of cards, but Yifan Wei has a pretty difficult card to answer in play and attacking.
That's right. So a Detention Sphere not going to do any good against the pro-white Blood Baron, and the rest of Patty's group doesn't seem to be getting it done. As we see here, tapping 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. Are we going to see a Supreme Verdict? We are not. That is 5 mana and 6 mana.
Could it be a Fated Retribution?
Not for 6, but maybe there it is. And an island coming down with 6 mana in the pool, and it's an Elspeth. There we go. Elspeth, you'd imagine we're going to take 3 loyalty counters off her? Yes, we are. So, see you later, Blood Baron. Did a lot of work, and Patty Robertson able to stabilize at least in the meantime.
Absolutely. Yeah, the soldier tokens weren't going to do very much, so Elspeth gone for the other ability to take care of that, which is very understandable.
A Detention Sphere on the stack at the moment. Patty Robertson getting a chance to respond. I saw a Supreme Verdict in Yifan Wei's hand, so that's going to take care of the first Blood Baron that Patty Robertson chooses to play here.
Yeah, and Patty Robertson had one in hand. He's just not played it out yet.
So that Detention Sphere, I still think Patty's mulling over that.
Yeah, does he have an answer he can play? I guess he has, otherwise he would have said that's fine.
No, I tell you what, Patty will sit and think about something when he's got no answers to it for a very long time.
Oh, he'll let you stew over it, will he?
Absolutely right.
Yeah, looks like he's gainsayed it.
So a gainsay is taking care of that Detention Sphere. So that Elspeth's going to stick around and at least produce 3 more tokens, 3 soldier tokens, you'd think here, as Patty Robertson untaps and draws for the turn.
This is looking a lot better for Patty Robertson now. The fact that he's on 12...
second Blood Baron. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ray, but a second Blood Baron finding its way into his hand.
That's pretty good. Like, Patty's on 12, Yifan's on 35.
Yeah.
In any other match, that might be a telltale sign of who was going to win, but Patty's definitely got the board on his side now with that Elspeth in play. With
an Elspeth online, a Detention Sphere in the bin thanks to that gainsay. I can imagine we're going to see a Blood Baron coming into play pretty quickly, although no, it's 6 mana, and it is Aetherling. There you go. Aetherling getting it done here. We're going to see the 2 most powerful 6-drops in this deck on the side of Patty Robertson after a very, very aggressive start from Yifan Wei. That Blood Baron getting in, engaging its secret mode, and becoming a 10-10. Now, on the back foot, Yifan Wei after an explosive start. What are your thoughts, Ray, as this game, the tapestry of this game continues to develop?
It's certainly turned very much in the favor of Patty Robertson. As that Aetherling came down, Yifan Wei gave it a quick thumbs up. That can't be what he was thinking.
No, absolutely right. And now Patty, with infinite mana, able to protect and blink that Aetherling, activate its abilities and take care of it. I mean, it looks like he's in a pretty commanding position. The Aetherling, a real key card in this matchup, as we see Patty tapping 4 mana for the Aetherling. That's going to take it up to an 8-1, and he's going to get stuck into the red zone and attack for 11 points of damage.
Absolutely. The key play for this match is the fact that Yifan Wei ran his Aetherling out there. Patty Robertson had the gainsay. Patty was able to resolve his own. I think that's what's made the difference.
Yeah, absolutely right. So an Aetherling there joining the soldier tokens as 3 more soldier tokens come into play, Ray, off of that Elspeth +1 activation. Patty Robertson still has 7 mana up. So with a million cards in hand, he's chosen not to deploy into the Blood Barons. I guess he doesn't need to overextend at this point with an Aetherling online as well as an Elspeth.
Absolutely not. At this point, Yifan Wei definitely needs to do something to stay in this game. So that's on him to do anything. Patty Robertson doesn't need to overextend into that. He wants Yifan Wei to do something to try and survive, and Patty wants to be able to play something afterwards to punish him.
That's right. Send in the clown, says Patty Robertson. 4 mana being spent on pumping the Aetherling to 8-1. That is a massive hit. Once again, we have now 14 points of damage coming his way, or coming Yifan Wei's way. With a Temple of Silence, his only play, and scrying off the top, no other plays. You'd think he'd have to be sitting on a Sphinx's Revelation, Ray?
Yeah, he'd be sitting on a Sphinx's Revelation, but I don't know that it's going to do him any good.
I don't think it's going to resolve.
Well, I mean, it might. But a Supreme Verdict, if you can find one with the Sphinx's Revelation, still doesn't deal with the Aetherling.
No, the Aetherling, very, very difficult, of course. I mean, you can imagine a lot of the spot removal spells coming out. A lot of people playing basically the fog game, attempting to just play and fog the Aetherling. As a Supreme Verdict comes down, Patty correctly blinking the Aetherling out as Elspeth tokens hit the graveyard, and of course are then removed from the game as they're just tokens, as Patty Robertson untaps, brings in the Aetherling once again during the end step. In it comes, in for 8, Yifan Wei down to 2 as Robertson's Elspeth Suns champion bringing 3 more tokens onto the battlefield. Robertson in a very commanding position here, still with 7 mana, and there's the handshake. Patty Robertson, the big dog from Northcote, Melbourne, making it all the way to the finals of GP Melbourne. A round of applause around the room for a fantastically played mirror match.